In CW's The Flash, there have only been a total of 14 main villains. They are Reverse Flash, Zoom, Savitar, the Thinker, Cicada, both cicadas, Bloodwork, Mirror Monarch, the Forces, Godspeed, Despero, Deathstorm, Reverse Flash, again, the Rogues plus the Red Death, and Cobalt Blue and his Speedster army, all with varying degrees of success and failure. In this video I will be going over each villain and see what I would change. Just one small change that could make them much better than what was shown on screen, and probably making up a follow-up video for each villain and discussing why they didn't work and how I would rework the story. Probably.
Some would say I'm the reverse.
So we got the first villain of the show, and it definitely won't be the last time we see him. With what we got in the show, I think it's extremely safe to say that I won't be changing anything about this version of Eobard. Honestly, he's the complete package of a villain. He's menacing, he's extremely well written, so good in fact that I think he's up there with the top tier villains like Thanos or Loki as an example. He's expertly played by Tom Cavanagh, whom I consider the best actor in the Arrowverse, apart from him playing different versions of Wells. He portrays Eobard Thawne, a more older and wiser version than what we see him in media. He's done so well that the audience sometimes forget that he's Eobard, and when his Wells persona drops, we see a fully enraged Eobard. Honestly, nothing here to change. A good villain. I find him intimidating, threatening, and his suit is so good. And his relationship and the parallels he had with Barry is for the most part well done. But there is some things that I did not like about Zoom. For one thing, his whole identity reveal was kind of bleh. Like, really writers? You'd think they'd do something more interesting, or at least something a bit more clever and more interesting. Season 1 reveal was great not only because Eobard was the villain, it's because the Reverse Flash was a mentor to Barry. A great idea and execution, but they kind of just did it again with Zoom and Barry, so when it was revealed that Jay was Zoom, it was just kind of meh. But that's honestly not the main issue. The main issue was the finale and Zoom's overarching plan. If you don't know or don't remember, Zoom wanted to blow up the multiverse because of big evil something. He then, and I'm pretty sure, built this stupid ring that he and Barry needs to run on it in order for it to go boom boom multiverse, except for Earth 1. What? I have so many problems with it. For starters, why does he need to run on it? Can't he just make more time remnants like he did in the finale when Barry was in his, rage mode? So can't he just make 2 remnants and then run on it? Actually, why do they need 2 speedsters? And why did Zoom have to make it some stupid race? He wanted to destroy the multiverse, just get on with it, man. Where is his original motivation? The guy was originally a speedster serial killer, which is a terrific idea by the way, who wanted to instill fear to people, while sadistically portrayed a fake hero who instills hope to people, only for him to rip it out. A really well thought out idea that was executed well at first. Then after Zoom is cured, because if you don't remember, Blue Speed is a no-no, he just became a generic evil take over the world kind of guy. Like seriously, he sets up an invasion for Earth 1. What happened there? Did he just give up? Did Zoom hold the writers hostage or something? Zoom was complex. While not as complex as Eobard, he still had some great character moments, especially with Barry and the parallels that they had with each other. But after he was cured, it cured my interest in him, and he was just kind of bleh. So my small change here is, make his plan align with his original serial killer motivation. Maybe he thinks he should be the only speedster that is worthy of having such godlike powers. If we're keeping his dying status in there, maybe if he kills all the speedsters in the multiverse, he can have all the Speed Force energy to himself and he would just be cured. Just anything with him and his serial killer for speedsters sound more interesting than blowing up the multiverse using a donut as his weapon.
How did you become Savitar?
Oh, Savitar. What could have been one of the best villains in the CW. Instead of the random pilot becoming a speedster, it was a version of Barry Allen who's finally succumbed to his grief, his rage, his loneliness, and becomes someone who's worse than all the villains he's fought up to the point. And of course, knowing the CW, they fumbled massively. You cannot deny that in the context of his origin, his identity, his motivation, and his endgame. While the performance of Grant Gustin is truly amazing, everything else did not work in execution, and the biggest problem of it is his identity. His identity was this big thing in the season's run. They kept teasing it like it was some big dramatic reveal. You know they did it 3 times in a row, right? It had the audience guessing, and my friends were making some really absurd theories, apart from the obvious Barry Allen, we got some wild ones. From Iris to Eddie to Ronnie to Joe West to Barry's mother. And what we got was Barry Allen, everyone's first guess. But that wasn't the problem. The two main problems I had was they revealed it so late into the series, in episode 20 might I say. This season had 23 episodes. I spent more time with the suit rather than a character, and then they dumped all that lore onto us in a span of 5 minutes without any scenes. It was just uninteresting and somehow really bland. The existence of Savitar makes no sense. There was no loop. There had to be a Savitar beforehand in order for him to exist. Eobard said this really stupid line that he knows Savitar's identity in the 100th episode. That means he knew everything post his death. How does that work? I have like a whole video coming up on what I want to change in season 3 and how his existence doesn't work. So yeah, the one small change I would make to season 3 is to change his identity. Now, I wouldn't change who Savitar is. He's still going to be Barry Allen, but which Barry Allen? And only one answer makes sense narratively and thematically, and that is the OG Barry Allen from Eobard's timeline. And I have 3 reasons as to why this makes sense. It shows how destructive Barry's powers can be. Because he decided to go against OG's Barry's wishes, our Barry effectively destroyed his timeline. With original Barry Allen unable to go anywhere, he decides to reside himself in the Speed Force until if or when our Barry undoes Flashpoint, then original Barry Allen decides to kill our Barry by effectively erasing him from existence. It shows that our Barry is just selfish. I get it that his dad died in front of him and he has no living family members, but he has to understand that these powers come at a cost. And what better way by doing that is erasing a future version of yourself and indirectly killing a timeline. I think original Barry Allen can do more physical, mental, emotional damage better than what we got with Savitar. He has more experience, he's more calm and collected, and doesn't come to that really terrible weakness in the original where somehow his and Barry's minds were linked somehow. And our final reason is we also get to know him more. People and fans have been begging to know where Barry is, the OG Barry, and what better way to do that in season 3, effectively a series finale in my eyes.
I'm the fastest mind.
Season 4 sucked, let's just get that out of the way. Despite having a non-speedster villain that has the power of intellect, ironically the writers could not think of something smart. He also looked really goofy in that chair. So, one small change would be, instead of DeVoe's powers being really smart predicting powers, it should have been reactive or adaptive smart powers. What I mean by that is, his powers should not be what it was portrayed in the show. There was no way that DeVoe knew that 12 bus metas were going to get the specific powers that he needs for the Enlightenment. There was no way that he knew Barry was going to do this or do that. There was no way that he knew Harry was going to be a thinking cap addict or literally anything else. His powers should have adapted to the situation at hand. I believe in his origin episode, the doctor was talking about his condition, and DeVoe knew what it was, despite knowing nothing about medical science. His powers were only able to come to a conclusion by reacting to the situation around him. This would be better because a more balanced power set. It also does challenge Barry's intelligence as well, since, Barry's also really smart as well without any powers. It's also more believable. Believe it or not. The second reason is that we can see him use his powers against Team Flash, outsmarting Cisco in engineering or technology, outsmarting Caitlin in medical science, Frost in battle IQ, Ralph's detective work, and Iris in journalism. What this does is that a single man is able to adapt to threats or solutions. And see, it just makes sense. His powers in the show is just predictability. He can predict any scenario, anything like that, but it's not intelligence. He's just omniscient. It just doesn't make sense.
Get out of my precinct.
Season 5 had the trope of not having a speedster villain, but instead having a serial killer metahuman instead, which is great. I like the parallels that he and Barry had when it came to protecting their children, and also the dagger looks really cool. But that's kind of it. Cicada is not that interesting. He just shows up and hates metas because they put his niece in a coma, and, well, he just hates it. While I do feel for him, it's just not that interesting. So there's one small change that I would make. Cicada 1. Cicada 2 is just remove it. Who cares? It's just one of the worst ideas that the show ever thought of. And that one small change is make Cicada a metaphobe. Make him the leader of a leader of a metahuman cure. It's incredibly weird how they introduced a metacure and not include metaphobia, and Cicada should have been a metaphobe. I am shocked on how Central City is incredibly accepting of the Flash, Kid Flash vibe and other good hero metas, but when it comes to bad guys, they're just afraid so easily. But I think there should have been a fraction of people that fears metas and are afraid if they are not put in check, and that's where Cicadas comes in. Kind of like a judge during executioner style, and a cult is created around him. What they could have done is something similar to Amon in The Legend of Korra. If you don't know, Amon is a villain where he wants to permanently rid of benders and has the power to do so, only it's discovered that he's just a waterbender. So they could have done something similar. Cicada hates metas and has the power to remove their powers temporarily using a dagger and kills them. But Team Flash discovers that he's a metahuman and he charges the dagger itself. And Cicada would have led the metahuman cure, convincing the public to turn on metahumans, including the good ones, and honestly, I can see martial law being declared here. Metas go into hiding, some take it like Cisco who just wants to live a normal life, and it would actually make sense compared to what we got. We can see returning metas like we did in season 1. They never really tied Cicada with the metahuman cure in the original. I know he did take the metahuman cure, but he should have represented the metahuman cure. So I think tying them together, it just makes more sense. And, you know, Thorn isn't here as well.
That's not Barry.
Season 6 introduced graphic novels, basically shorter stories as opposed to season-long arcs. And while this is a good change, did it work for Bloodwork? Absolutely yes. Bloodwork was written really well, performed really well, and overall his storyline and parallels with Barry regarding death were done extremely well. Honestly, him and season 1 Thorn were done really well, that I have nothing to fault with Bloodwork. There is nothing nice for this villain. Terrible villain, backstory, motivation, and her capturing Iris was just such a chore. Like, we see Iris's life threat in season 3, so why do we need one again just for season 6? Her whole plan was uninteresting, and the way she got defeated was just so boring that I had to rewatch it again and again just to write this section. And I'm pretty sure it's the power of friendship, I think? So there would be one thing I would change to make Mirror Monarch better. Don't have her here. I'm not saying it just because I don't like her villain or character. I'm saying it from a writing and storyline perspective. If you don't remember, Crisis just finished, and when the multiverse had been reset, there are so many questions left unanswered. What happened to everyone? Characters' histories have been changed. Does the team know that the multiverse still exists? If so, do we get to explore it? What does the new Earth look like since Black Lightning and Supergirl Earth is combined into one? Do we get to see them pop up? Or maybe we see the villains make an appearance? Nope, we get to see a captured Iris. The first couple of episodes were great, like we get to see Pied Piper again. We get to see a speedster Gorilla Grodd. Like, hello? That's pretty cool. And just ditches it later on. What I want to see is to explore the new Earth more. Maybe explore new things about it, since just like the characters, we are new to it as well. So for the rest of the season, honestly, make it weekly filler episodes. I know it sounds weird and unorthodox, but personally I think it works since the writers can just do a full reset and do what they want. And us, the viewers, honestly wouldn't be mad about it since it makes sense in universe. I think Mirror Monarch was just boring. She had nothing to do with Barry for majority of her run except for capturing his wife, and she had no development as a character. I think she just realizes that she's not the real Ava and then wants everyone to be mirror duplicates. What is that? Like, that's not intriguing. That's just boring and frustrating. Honestly, you could introduce her into the Rogues in season 9 and I will not be annoyed with it.
It's for a couple seasons where like we had our Force children, you know, the Forces were our children, and it was like so bizarre to me that like they're calling me dad and I'm treating them like children. And
this might be the harder one here. I'd argue this might be one of the hardest ones here. I had a really hard time thinking here because the Forces, while a great concept and idea, were executed so poorly that I had a migraine. It's just incredibly weird that the Forces call Iris and Barry their parents, and just to clarify, they are extra-dimensional beings who don't have physical bodies, who were born and decide, yeah, Barry and Iris, they're my parents. Along with that, the Speed Force itself was just kind of the train wreck. I don't know why they made it so emotional and dependent on Barry. Maybe you could argue that when Barry and Iris remade it, they gave it love, but it's still weird for the Speed Force to be that close to Barry. At some point, I thought it was in love with him, since he got jealous with Iris, of all beings in the multiverse. Like, dog, you got godlike abilities. If the Speed Force wants a family of some sorts, I kinda get that, but don't make it love romantically, man. Like, when rewatching it, I'm pretty sure the Speed Force attacked all the other forces or something, and it was just like, bleh. So, there's one small change I would make for the forces to be better and less family-like. And no, that ain't the change. The change is, make each force an enemy to Barry and his team, including the Speed Force itself. So I would make each of the forces hate Barry a lot and have some connection to him and his team. Each force can represent Barry's struggles with something that he still has apparently. Who knows, the CW writers just reset every character in existence. The Strength Force can represent Barry's burden of being a hero. The Strength Force could accuse Barry of being weak since he constantly relies on his team instead of using his powers to impose order, which, man, it's definitely true in that one. Just watch every other episode ever. I think Cisco could have some connection here, since yeah, he does rely on his team, but he had power to impose order, but chose the other way because it's the right thing to do. They fight and all that and they win, making the Strength Force see the error of their ways, something very simple and generic. The Sage Force, Psyche can reveal Barry's fears, like failing to protect his wife since he just got her back, losing his team or the world again due to possibly another crisis. I can see Allegra being part of this. Maybe Psyche was someone that Allegra knew while she got out, the Avatar did it and focuses their rage on both. Again, like in CW fashion, they fight. Barry and Allegra move past their failures and reconcile with the Avatar. The Still Force, maybe the Still Force just hates Barry for messing with the timeline so much. Then again, the Speed Force also hates that, but let's just stick with the Still Force for now. I know it's a kind of a retread for Season 3, but I literally got nothing else for this. I can see Frost and Chester teaming up with Barry for this, since, you know, we can keep Chester's part with his dad, and I liked it. Maybe with Frost, there's some problems she has with Time and Caitlin. They can't agree with, you know, what's best for both of them. I got nothing, to be honest. Maybe, you know, they fight and Barry convinces them that he's not that guy anymore and he understands the pain. You could say he came full circle with it instead of questioning it, and he accepts his flaws and mistakes and will always, you know, protect the world to do better. Something like that, whatever, just anything as opposed to calling them family. And the Speed Force. I can see why the Speed Force would hate Barry. Time and time again, Barry has disobeyed, refused the Speed Force's pleas, misused its power, and even kill it, albeit unintentionally. And so after its rebirth, Barry and Iris created the other forces, which created more problems and made the Speed Force feel essentially abandoned. It was the final straw for it and wanted to get revenge on Barry and Iris, their creators. This would make sense in my eyes for Barry to give some power to Iris and make her a temporary speedster, a husband and wife speedster duo going up against an interdimensional being that is the source of their powers. It seems cool and they can reason with it, and they're trying to convince the Speed Force that they're not alone. Since Barry and Iris created the new Speed Force, it makes sense for the Speed Force to feel some emotion. They reconcile, the forces have each other, but no, they are not calling each other sister and brother. It just doesn't make sense. Maybe they're just like friends or allies to Barry and Iris. Really gross idea, writers. Why would you do that?
So now you know everything we do. Okay, so you got 4 kids, 2 of which are so pissed off they want to kill you. This is why some people shouldn't have children.
You are such an ass.
I'm direct, sis. There's a difference.
Look, the point is, Nora will come after you, too.
So if she's as nuts as you say she is.
Dog, how did they mess up Godspeed? A cool name, a cool suit, and a cool death? Like, how did they make him so uninteresting and they just ruined it? I don't like the fact that they made him a Bart Allen enemy. It feels uninteresting since we knew nothing about Bart, and they really could have fleshed out his character, and if they decide to do that, make him the same age as Bart, working together. He just uses his powers in an evil way or something. His whole Godspeed war wasn't even a war. It was just a mini debacle, and it resolves by August taking all the Speed Force stuff and he just becomes corrupted. Like, okay, that's not interesting. And worst of all, he just keeps saying like he's the god of speed, like and some NPC.
And once my ascension is complete, all will bow before the might of Godspeed. There can only be one god of speed, Flash.
I'm the living god of speed.
Dude, you lost to a washed up Reverse Flash and a Flash who is somehow slower than you. So if he wasn't fleshed out enough in his arc, he wasn't interesting enough to keep audiences interested, and the audience doesn't believe his whole personality change and his amnesia, what can we do? Well, there is one small change here, and it's so simple that I'm shocked that the writers changed it. It is, keep him in the present. In the comics, he worked with Barry as a detective partner, and while investigating Black Hole, yeah, that's the same company Iris was investigating, he was struck by the Speed Force Storm and becomes a speedster who works with the Flash, but later becomes evil to find his brother's killer. Like, yeah, that's pretty cool. They can do that with the show as well, with some tweaks. Remember what I said about Season 6 and its new multiverse? They can totally introduce August Hart via name drop. August revealed to be working with CCPD and returned back, but on his way there was a Speed Force tornado thing, just like what happened with originally what we got in the Forces arc. And then that tornado struck him and 9 others. With them gaining super speed, Barry and August reunite. At this point, Barry doesn't know August, since technically this Barry is a pre-crisis Barry, and gets used to a new lab partner. They review cases together and Barry realizes something is odd. They are speedster-related crimes. August reveals his powers. He gets in contact with the Flash and they train together and, finding other speedsters. At this point in the show, Barry is the sole speedster. Wally isn't there, Jesse is dead, Jay's on another Earth. So Barry thinks it's great to train a new generation of speedsters. And August has these new powers. So he realizes he can do more than just be a hero. He can find out who killed his brother and, get revenge. In this new post-crisis timeline, there was evidence that August's brother was killed by someone, and it was in Barry's forensics lab, but was destroyed due to the particle accelerator explosion, and there's no evidence remaining. Honestly, I can do a whole rewrite now, but I'll just keep it short since I'll make one anyway. Out of the 10 speedsters, August is the most in control, but he's slowly losing his cool due to the Flash's training and justice methods, opting for more deadly ways, questioning why someone with godlike powers needs to have moral obligations, and he questions Barry's heroism. What does it mean to be a hero? Why do we need to be human when we can be gods? And some other stuff happens. I think Godspeed being in the present is a great idea because we get to see his character. Like, seriously, we don't know his true character until he became the actual Godspeed when he absorbed all of those stupid Godspeeds. Also, it's cool to have a speedster that is not Barry to last more than 2 episodes in the show. Looking at you, Wally.
Time to start our honeymoon, my bride, because I want forever to start right now.
This one is kind of interesting, actually. While Deathstorm is great, he's kind of bland. I'm not the biggest fan of him just solely being focused on Caitlin. It's great that we got some Caitlin stuff going on, but she was just the whole plan that Deathstorm was solely attached to. With my second criticism is that I don't like that it's just Ronnie. I get why and the reason behind it, but I didn't really feel anything. Deathstorm just shows up, torments the team, wants Caitlin to marry him. Wait, what? That's pretty gross, and that's literally the end game. So that's my change. Change Deathstorm's plan to something of, being, instead of Caitlin's bride, because Ronnie's love for her, change it to absorbing grief. So that way Deathstorm feels more alive. Ronnie's love tried to stop Deathstorm, but his grief overtook it, and it wants more. So he wants to feed on people's grief even more, and what better way to do it is feed off Team Flash's grief. Easily the most griefed out people in the history of grief. I mean, Barry is literally suffering every week, man. You could sprinkle in mentions on how Deathstorm got a hold of other heroes like Supergirl, Black Lightning, etc., but it wasn't enough compared to Team Flash, more specifically Barry and Caitlin. You can still make it about Caitlin, that's fine, as we get to explore more of her grief of losing Ronnie and her whole life, but we can also make it about Frost. I say killing her off earlier in the arc as opposed to the end makes it so much more impactful and a shocking twist early on, and it would be great to explore Caitlin's grief just fully exploding and Deathstorm loving it. I think that it's great, and it ends off Caitlin just trying to revive her or something and just leaving the team for a while. I don't know, man. This one I did not enjoy. We literally did not get enough time to explore this arc. I'm pretty sure it was just 3 episodes. I didn't care about Mina at all. I like that Matt Letscher came back, but then just died for the evil Thorn to come back and have the world's most tight suit. Like, seriously, that black Reverse Flash suit and Tom Cavanagh in it, it cannot fit. I'm shocked that he didn't die, and it just reminds me of Michael Keaton's Batman suit. And what else? Oh, right. Iris gets sick from negative tachyons or something. So I guess there's one change I can suggest. I don't care. Like, seriously, this was just a bore. Remove this entire thing and nothing changes. It doesn't help Earbud's character. In fact, he just somehow becomes more boring and a caricature of himself. He's just not fun. I didn't want to think of this because there's nothing else to think of. And now we got the last two, and these might be the most painful ones of all time.
Vengeance.
My god, this was something. I like the concept of Red Death, a female fake speedster who was just from another Earth, but her whole character was just rage. And none of it was justified at all. Like, yeah, okay, on her Earth, villains just keep getting out, and she just kept getting frustrated and so angry that she made a suit that made her a speedster. And then she just got flung to a new Earth and got angry at Barry for a logical reason, and then decided to use Al Barry as a scapegoat for her to justify her anger. And it just wasn't fun to see that. If you compare it to Thorn, for example, post-Crisis Thorn at least, while extremely petty and pathetic, it made sense for his entire character. Unlike Red Death, her rogues weren't developed enough as well. We just got Boomerang 2.0, another meta who uses sound powers, weirdo serial killer, and... is that Rainbow Raider? Wait, he's back and that's great. Oh my god. And her plan was just generic. Establish order across the city by placing a ton of Red Deaths, and she just wants Barry's speed. Like every other speedster villain ever. Like, come on, man, this is so boring, it's so flat and dull, and overall uninspiring. Like, honestly, there are so many changes because it was so bad and so boring. From Red Death's character to the inclusion of the rogues, her overall plan, it was just so bad to watch. But if I have to choose one, and that would be her plan, I would change it to link it to the next two stories, Bloodwork and Cobalt Blue. Her plan revolved around saving the Earth, so I think her plan would involve, you know, the Speed Force and Earth maybe trapping the Earth in the Speed Force temporarily so that the threat will pass, maybe putting everyone in limbo so that she can stop the threat, just anything that involves the Earth stopping. What you saw in the premonition was Bloodwork and his infection of the multiverse, and Cobalt Blue with his plan for the timeline, which I'll get to later. What we could do is make it that the negative multiverse, just like in the comics, but I don't think that would be great since the Spectre could intervene and just fix it normally. She could also think that it's a crisis, but it really isn't. I think adding this change just makes more sense. Her plan is justified and her quote-unquote rage towards Barry is more logical and it makes more sense. Obviously, Al Barry has nothing to do with the premonition, and I think her character would just be much better. Her wanting to save the Earth and her mind just cracks because due to the overwhelming pressure that she got. Actually, I don't think we ever got a speedster villain like that, so just let me know if I'm wrong or anything like that.
What the hell?
This one is incredibly simple. It's so simple that it's part of the synopsis of the series finale, and they didn't do anything with it. And that is, make the plan involve the timeline. Like, hello? They didn't do anything remotely threatening. In the finale, they just fight and lose, and then Barry just convinces Eddie to coexist or some shit. Something I don't remember, honestly. The finale wrapped up in 15 minutes and I blanked out. But the synopsis says something about the timeline and existence. Existence of what? Timeline of what? Hello? Honestly, I don't think I want to rewrite this. Anything involving the timeline is a good enough change for me. Eddie wanting to be the hero of the timeline instead of Barry, done, that's a change. Eddie wants a kid with Iris, done, that's a change. Eddie wanting to remove Barry from existence, done, that's a change. You know what? Put in your change in the comments, and that's a change. Whatever it is, I'm game with that. So yeah, that's all the changes for my arcs. I did ignore Despero because he just wasn't a threat. I think the real threat was the writing, to be honest, but Despero was okay, I guess. I do plan making on one small change and making a full rewrite on each of the seasons from seasons 3 to 9, but that will take a while. I'm done with seasons 3. I'm nearly done with season 4. I just need to think of a better finale than what I'm writing at the moment, and I'm nearly done with season 5. But yeah, this was frustrating. A frustrating watch. So, you know, thanks for watching.